there, Jen Lillian, and apologies, I should have been live from 5:45, but I had some problems going live this week, not too sure why, even though I downloaded the new beta version of Chrome as instructed by Facebook, but again, not too sure what's going on. Technology for you, but apologies. But a big fat welcome to you. Say hello, let me know where you're from. Because I'm actually using my phone this week instead of my usual desktop Mac, I don't know who's online, and I don't know if I can actually see your questions, should you have any that might come through throughout the workshop today. So feel free, if you wanted to, just leave your questions below, and I can always bounce back to them after this recording. But I'm not too used to using my phone, I'm always on my desktop. But that aside, I can easily answer your questions towards the end, or if you feel like you've got something a little bit personal that you don't feel you want to share online, that's absolutely fine. You can just message me. You can find me Jen Lillian, or you can find me also through this page as well, the business page of Leeds Beckett University. So yes, this is actually the week number 8 of the Stress Management Workshop series for Leeds Beckett University. Again, my name is Jen, and hello to you. I'm just going to backtrack and just go through briefly the previous weeks and use this part of the workshop as a bit of a signposting type thing, so you can actually ping back should you wish and get the most out of the other workshops, because they're very practical. They all have a practical element in mind, and if you are struggling maybe with stress right now, or possibly anxiety, this is actually what we're going to be covering today in more depth in this particular workshop. But I'll just go back. Week number 1 was the Are You Stressed assessment. Now, it's a 25-part questionnaire, a very, very good tool to use, and within a few minutes you're going to know exactly where you are with your stress levels, because obviously this is now week number 8 for me with this stress management workshop. We've all been living in this situation, which is the COVID-19 crisis, and it's been incredibly tough for many people on so many different levels. And yeah, you're going to know exactly what you might need to do and how urgent you might need to make change into your life if you were to know your stress level. So I recommend you go back to week number 1. The link is actually in the description that I've left tagged onto this video. So go ahead down to that link and find out where you are with your stress levels. 14 points plus out of 25. I would definitely recommend that you start to make change in your life, and there's more in that workshop should you need that sort of help. Week number 2 was analysing your here and now, and again the link is below. It was about really taking check of your whole life as a whole, and we actually identified 12 main areas that your life could be categorised in. So anything from health, relationships, financials, your career, personal growth, and I actually added 4 extra categories, so cardio, strength, balance and good nutrition. It was really just to see where you were before the crisis hit, where you feel you are now, and also where you are or where you want to be in the future. So again, a very practical and useful tool. Week number 3, your 4 mental states. So again, a very generalised type description of the mental states that you might find yourself in, because obviously I'm not a neuroscientist. However, it's good, I think, just to maybe on the whim, just maybe see how you feel and maybe describe your mental state at that time, because then if you are in a low mental state, or for example what we discussed then was like a mood of depression or possibly anxiety, I'm not saying that's where you are now, but for example a very extreme sort of mood and state that you can be in, you can then jump into using techniques and tools in order for you to shift your mood. So that was again a real useful tool, week number 3. Week number 4 was practicing gratitude. So if you are on top of your stress levels and you're sort of moving away into more of an optimum health type experience with your physical and mental states, then it's always good to continue with your hard work. So practicing gratitude, the science is definitely there, and I researched a lot into that week to show to you, to present to you that there's so many health benefits, more so mentally, when you practice gratitude. Again, in my experience growing up, it wasn't really encouraged, so I never did it, but I do it now, and I really do see the positives, so that's really good there. Week number 5 was the 25 self-care tips. So again, it was just a quick list of things for you to maybe consider should you want to maybe enhance your happiness, enhance your energy levels, enhance your outlook in life. There are things that you can definitely do and implement into your life relatively quick and easy. So that was week number 5. Week number 6, the actual generic the discussion was personal development, and if you actually refer back to the other previous weeks, that's really what we've been doing, using the tools. It is personal growth, personal development. It's basically you becoming aware of how you feel right now and what you can do in order to make change and better yourself moving forward into the future. Week number 7 was last week, 13 fast and effective self-development exercises. Now, unfortunately, I got cut off about 22 minutes into the workshop last week, and I didn't go through all of them, but again, tagged at the bottom of that particular video were the 13 fast and effective self-development tools and exercises. So again, ping back, again, if you're really into sort of like personal growth, self-development, and you are an action taker, that was definitely a workshop for you that you could take great value from. So that was just an overview of the last few weeks. And again, as mentioned, we're now week number 8, and we're going to be talking about the differences between stress and anxiety. And I'm going to be really transparent here. I'm going to be really opening up to you, just so that hopefully me opening up to my experiences with stress and anxiety might help you, should you start to witness or identify or maybe become aware of changes in your mental states or physical well-being, because they can be quite subtle, and if you leave these types of symptoms unchecked, I'm obviously a worst case scenario, which you're going to find out in a very short while, it can lead to damaging effects on your physical health and mental health as well. So again, this is on behalf of Leeds Beckett University. They do fantastic with catering for awesome fitness classes. Feel free to check out their schedule. You can find that on their website as well. And there's also some amazing videos here on this page that you can go through. And again, it's really great to combat your stress using these types of exercises. So who's this workshop for briefly? I'm just going to be careful of the time today because I came on late due to the internet, and I believe there's another class straight after. So who's it for? This workshop is going to be for anyone who feels still that they're struggling with the uncertainty of the situation, if they feel like they're just not motivated and they don't feel themselves and they're really worried about the future and they can't really see any hope, or it's the wheel of constant worry, and it's just, it can be a pattern you can fall into. But what people don't realise with stress, it can become quite an addictive thing. The fear response mechanism in the brain is the amygdala, and when we're stressed, that kicks in and it sends the chemical messages and chemicals into the brain, the motor cortex, with your ability to take action. So you either freeze, fight, or run away. And most people do respond a very healthily way to stress. But if you, again, experience stress on a constant sort of basis, and you're not actually looking after yourself in the process, this can then lead to further struggles that you might have with anxiety, depression in my case a few years back, and things like that. So this is where I want you to understand that if you are scoring high on that Are You Stressed assessment in week number 1, then don't you worry, I'm here, I've got your back. And there's definitely ways in order for you to feel like you can get back to yourself again. So it's all about getting back to optimum health using natural resources. So it's really for anyone, again, who is feeling panicked still by the situation. You may be resisting change at the moment. Obviously, we've been given the green light to go to work and maybe send our kids back to school. But what does that really mean? I know I've got still some questions. I've got a little 4-year-old, and now they're wanting their reception classes to start back first. Everyone is in the same boat, but we're not obviously experiencing this situation on the same level at all. I mean, it can mean different things for so many different people in so many different ways. But yeah, it is a worrying and confusing time for most. So again, my name is Jen, and I do work for Leeds Beckett University. I do spin on a Monday and a Thursday, 5:15 till 6. But yeah, I've actually struggled big time with stress. A few years back, I've been a business owner since 2012, and I've run 4 indoor cycling studios. Absolutely love my spin, but unfortunately I got so wrapped up and caught up with the world of business, especially outside in Shanghai, China, just around the corner from where the virus broke out. So I had my 2 studios, and it was great, you know, earning loads of money. We had great credibility in the community, and it was just fantastic. But behind the scenes, I just wasn't looking after myself. I was working, not taking adequate breaks, and just not switching off. And I still am such a go-getter, but that obviously got in the way of my health, and the stress really did take over, and I wasn't, again, seeing the signs that my body was trying to give me at the time. And before I knew it, it took a few years for it to happen, but the anxiety crept in, and then the burnout, you know, got me down in bed. And because I was just in that pattern of always burning out over the period of like 2 to 4 years, I think it was, and the health professionals out there didn't know exactly really what was going on with me, that's when I ended up experiencing depression, because my body was just trying to tell me, like, Jen, you need to wake up, you need to change your lifestyle, you really need to start looking after yourself. Because really what I did was I gave everything of me away to my business and everything else that was going on at the time, and I wasn't working inwards, looking after myself, and that's where really I went wrong. So yes, there is a difference between stress and anxiety. So just a quick run over of what that difference is. So the symptoms can be quite similar, which is quite, can be sometimes quite confusing, because you might think, oh, I'm just stressed out. But really, anxiety could be what you're experiencing. So in my experience, again, I was experiencing stress on a regular basis. So for example, running a business in China, as you can imagine, had its challenges, people not speaking English, when you really needed like the help and the support, physically always working and covering for the instructors that may not have been around to do their classes, so I was physically exhausted. And you know, it was good stress, because there are good stresses and bad stresses. And another example of good stress could be planning your wedding, or planning a holiday, or maybe working towards a deadline. So again, stress is good, you know, it's there, and everyone should experience stress in their life from time to time. But there are obviously bad stresses. So obviously my experience running businesses was bad stress, even though the business was great, but I wasn't at that time in my life ready to, you know, deal with the success of a business, because I was just always working and I didn't know where the line was to stop. And it led to exhaustion, and I was worrying a lot, and with all the events I was planning, and you know, you end up sort of not feeling yourself in your sort of head, and you're not feeling yourself in your body, and again it becomes your new normal. And this is what I don't want you to do. I don't want this whole situation to become your normal, your new normal, that is, because yeah, again, that's where you need to become aware and stop those symptoms from sort of taking over. So stress is like it's set off by triggers. So if you're triggered by something, and again, you have like a natural response to stress, that's all well and good. And for example, stress can be manifested in ways of like frequent headaches, sleep disturbance. You can experience back and neck pain, feeling fatigue, and you start to feel quite sweaty in your feet and your palms. You're prone to getting ill a lot more than normal. Again, the worry starts creeping in. Again, feeling overwhelmed, that's also a big one that I used to experience as well. And you find it hard to concentrate, and having that difficulty in sort of clearing your head of thoughts. These are the sorts of things that stress is, and what stress can present itself as. But anxiety, so this is a difference, like you can have stress on a daily basis, but as long as you're looking after yourself in the process, then stress, again, is a good thing. As mentioned, there is good stress and bad stress. But anxiety is like the long-term version, and it is a mental disorder, which sounds really harsh, but really it is a disorder. It's a disorder of something going on mentally, really. And it's when the threat or the trigger that usually that you're stressed reacting from, is when you are still feeling those symptoms after that threat or trigger has gone. So you're you know, maybe trying to chill out at night time, in front of Netflix, but you've still got that worry creeping through, and you're still not sleeping at night, even though you've just, you know, the trigger of, for example, reading the news, reading a blog, or you know, just watching a news bulletin, if that's now becoming a pattern that you see after the trigger's gone, that really is anxiety, and it ends up being your new normal again if you're not being aware and you see the signs for what they are. So I'll just reel off a few extra points when it comes to anxiety so you can sort of judge the difference. But it's the difficulty of controlling the worry. I mean, in my experience, again, everyone's different. It's definitely not one size fits all when it comes to anxiety, but anxiety for me felt like a few years ago just not being able to switch off, having like a second voice in your head, and you were just always constantly fighting this voice in your head. It's a real loud negative person that you live with upstairs, putting you down and giving you a hard time with everything that you do. And it's tough because there's not enough room for two voices. There should only be one, but that's how it felt for me. And if you don't control that other voice, in my experience, in your head, then that's when it ends up spilling out in your areas of life, because it's a noisy place, anxiety. If you've got that second voice, again, in my experience, this is how I'm trying to describe it. It's quite a difficult thing to describe, but in my experience, it affected my surrounding relationships. Over time, it really did have an impact on my business. It definitely had an impact on my health. So again, as mentioned earlier, I got burnt out because I was trying to look after myself, looking after my you know, anxiety, looking after the stress as well. And it's just tough. It really is just tough. So, and you feel quite irritable, and I started to feel quite uncomfortable in my own skin because that muscle tension just gets worse and worse. And you know, I wasn't a very good sleeper, and then I ended up like working, doing things online, for example, to support my business because I wasn't working. It was like my crutch, really. Like, people might choose to drink, I would always choose to pick up my Mac and work on something just to try and get through the night, because sometimes I would have real bad periods of insomnia. So this is the difference between stress and anxiety. So anxiety is like the ongoing stress symptoms that you might feel. So after the threat or the trigger has gone, and you're still feeling stressed and worked out. So it's so I just had a message there come up. That is really the difference between stress and anxiety. So I hope that makes sense. And if you're there right now, I get it. It's tough, and it's hard to just to get on top of. However, so I've got another message come through. I'm not used to using my phone when going live. However, it is possible to obviously get on top of either stress, anxiety, or if you have both. So in my experience, I was stressed, which led to my anxiety, and anxiety is like a byproduct of depression. That was my experience. But again, I am worst case scenario. So if you were to go back and fill out the Are You Stressed questionnaire, and if you are 14 points plus, you know, don't be too alarmed, because when I first filled it out, I was 23 out of 25. So how can you get on top of stress or anxiety, or if you feel like you're experiencing both, then again, that is that's fine. Getting all these messages come up on my phone. How can you get on top of it, and what can Leeds University help really well with? So how I got myself out of stress and anxiety is implementing 4 natural resources. So cardio, strength, balance, and good nutrition. So cardio, really good for an instant stress release. So again, I absolutely love my spinning. I can't spin right now, but anything like walking, running, fantastic classes that Leeds Beckett University does as well. So obviously just go back to any of their videos. You can do their Zumba or body pump or club dance, anything like that. So again, cardio is very good. It's key to alleviating your stress and anxiety. On the strength side, again, strength-based classes. Again, as mentioned, I felt quite uncomfortable in my body when I was really feeling the stress and anxiety. But again, if you start to really focus on your strength-based classes, so again, anything like Leeds Beckett University does, like yoga, HIIT and abs, express Pilates. But you need to, you want to feel like you're coping and like you're winning in life. And if you're battling with anxiety up, up in your head, and the aches and pains of your body, it's just, you feel like you're gonna not lose the battle. So yeah, just always look after yourself. And I know it's hard sometimes to get that motivation when you are feeling quite low and anxiety is really at the forefront of everything that you do, and you need to just cut through that. And I know it's easier said than done, but yeah, do strength-based classes as much as what you can. Definitely implement it into your life if you haven't done so already. It just makes life a hell of a lot easier when you're picking up your kids, when you're doing the gardening, when you're picking up your shopping, that sort of thing. On the balance side, again, as a third resource, really recommend it. This is like an internal way of dealing with stress and anxiety, because cardio and strength is like the physical side of your body, but internal is what I class as balance. And there's so much behind meditation, and I know that Binny is one of the instructors of Leeds Beckett University who does amazing meditation classes. But again, I've always said this in every single workshop: if you can't go outside, go inside. And that is my key. That's what got me out of my stress, depression, anxiety, was meditation. And you learn so much about yourself as well in the process. So if you've never tried meditation and you are feeling the stress right now, or anxiety, or possibly both, then feel free to jump on board the meditation classes that are held by Leeds Beckett University. And the fourth natural resource is good nutrition. Again, we all know what foods to reach out for when we are feeling stressed. However, it's very difficult when you are experiencing low moods and you're feeling irritable and you're maybe feeling out of character. But if you can, just try and think of your future self. Aim for the great foods, eat rainbow coloured food, that's what I say, or maybe change up your diet completely. You can either go from meat eating to vegetarian, or maybe vegetarian to vegan, but there's loads of options. Now, those 4 resources are great for stress, but if you feel after watching this video that you're now experiencing not so much stress, but it's maybe moved to an anxiety type experience, then feel free to implement those 4 natural resources. And again, it's more trial and error, because not one size fits all at all, especially in this type of area. But you can combat anxiety with interventions such as taking medication. I've never taken medication. I'm not against it, and I'm not promoting it as such, but that could be an option. And also you can source out counselling, but I would always say really give those 4 natural resources a really heavy go first before you do other interventions such as counselling, or taking antidepressants or anxiety tablets, which I've never done, so I've got no experience in that, so I wouldn't like to suggest otherwise. And then also, if you go back to the Wheel of Life, which was week number 2, I believe, let me just scroll up my notes, analysing your here and now, I do feel in order to help you combat stress and maybe help you with anxiety as well, is to focus again on all the areas of your life. In that workshop, we managed to score out of 10 how you felt before, how you felt during the COVID crisis, and how you feel or where you want to be moving forward. And I just feel like you having a good solid support network really helps with stress, and really does help if you are struggling with anxiety as well. So yeah, definitely check that out. Week number 2, analysing your here and now. But they're the interventions that would work really well if you are again struggling with the challenges of stress and anxiety, especially in a time like now. Yeah, so again, apologies if I was late, and yeah, it's now 20 past 6. I really again can't see who's jumped on or any questions to come through, but if you do have a question and maybe you feel it's a bit too sensitive to for you to put on Facebook, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. But yeah, thanks ever so much for listening, and I will see you next week. Thank you.